Picture this. It is a hot summer morning, the kind where the sunlight is already bright before breakfast, the patio feels warm under your shoes, and you only have a few minutes before work, errands, kids, or the rest of the day pulls you away. You step outside with a watering can or a hose, give the garden a quick deep drink, check a few leaves with one hand, and then you spot something waiting for you. A handful of okra pods, a few cherry tomatoes, a bunch of green onions, basil tips, beans hanging under the leaves, and maybe enough cucumbers to fill a small bowl. You were not out there for an hour. You did not spend the whole evening fussing with every plant. You simply chose the right crops for summer, planted them where they could handle the heat, and let the garden work with you instead of against you. That is the idea behind this garden. It is not a perfect show garden. It is not a complicated homestead system. It is a practical summer food garden for busy people. Maybe you only have a small backyard. Maybe you only have a raised bed, a few grow bags, a patio, or a strip of sunny space along a fence. Maybe you love the thought of fresh food, but you do not have time to baby plants every single day. In summer, choosing the right vegetables matters more than doing 100 little chores. Some crops demand constant attention when the weather gets hot. Others seem to understand the season. They grow in warm soil, recover from a mist watering better than fragile greens, keep producing when harvested often, and give you food from the same plant again and again. For a low-maintenance summer garden, we are looking for a few things. First, we want crops that can handle heat better than delicate cool-season vegetables. Second, we want plants that offer repeat harvests instead of one tiny harvest and then they are done. Third, we want vegetables and herbs that can fit into containers, small beds, fence lines, or corners without taking over the whole yard. And fourth, we want crops that are forgiving. A forgiving plant does not mean you can completely ignore it. It still needs sun, decent soil, water, and some basic care. But it does mean that one busy week does not automatically ruin the whole season. The secret is not to plant everything in hope. The secret is to build a simple summer garden around dependable crops. Give them a good start with compost-rich soil. Mulch the surface so the soil does not dry out so quickly. Water deeply in the morning instead of sprinkling the leaves for a few seconds. Harvest before fruit gets old and tough. Keep the layout open enough that air can move. Then let the plants do what they are good at. Before we get into the list, imagine the video in simple, real garden moments. A hand pushes mulch around a pepper plant, a hose waters slowly at the base of a cucumber, a pair of scissors cuts basil just above a leaf node, a basket fills gradually, not all at once, but one small harvest at a time. That is the pace of a busy summer garden. It is quiet, practical, and repeatable. There is also a mindset shift here. Many gardeners think low maintenance means doing almost nothing, but that is not true. Low maintenance means doing the few things that matter most and skipping the extra work that does not move the garden forward. A deep watering is more useful than 3 quick sprinkles. A strong trellis installed early is easier than rescuing tangled vines later. A plant chosen for heat is easier than a plant that needs shade cloth, constant misting, and daily rescue just to survive. And because this video is for summer gardeners across the United States, remember that timing will not be identical everywhere. A gardener in Georgia, Texas, Florida, or Southern California may have a longer warm season than a gardener in Michigan, Minnesota, Maine, or the Mountain West. That is why this list focuses on plant behavior instead of one exact calendar date. These are crops that generally make sense when the soil is warm, the days are long, and the gardener wants food without turning the garden into a second job. The first vegetable on the list is okra. And if you garden in a hot part of the United States, okra can feel like one of the most reliable summer crops you can grow. When lettuce is fading, peas are long gone, and many cool season greens are begging for shade, okra is just getting comfortable. It likes warm soil, strong sunlight, and real summer weather. That makes it a great choice for gardeners who do not want to fight the season. Okra is low maintenance because once the plants are established, they grow with a strong upright habit and produce pods again and again. You do not need a huge planting. A few healthy plants can give a steady supply if you harvest them often. The main job is simple. Pick the pods while they are still tender. If you leave them too long, they become large, fibrous, and less pleasant to eat. So instead of thinking of okra as a crop that needs a big harvest day, think of it as a crop you check quickly in the morning. Walk by, lift the leaves, cut the small pods, and move on with your day. For a small garden, okra works well at the back of a bed or in a large container because it grows upright rather than sprawling across the ground. Give it full sun, soil that drains well, and enough room around each plant so air can move. Mulch helps a lot in July and August because okra likes warmth but still needs steady moisture to keep producing. If the lower leaves get old or touch the soil, trim them away. That one little habit keeps the plant cleaner and makes harvesting easier. For busy gardeners, okra is one of those crops that rewards consistency, not perfection. The second vegetable is Swiss chard. Chard is not always the first plant people think of for summer, but it deserves a place in a low-maintenance garden because it keeps giving. Unlike lettuce, which often bolts or turns bitter in heat, Swiss chard can keep producing leaves for a long stretch when it has decent moisture. It is a cut and come again crop, which means you do not need to pull the whole plant. You harvest the outer leaves, leave the center growing, and come back later for more. For busy gardeners, that is valuable. You can plant a few chard plants and treat them almost like a living grocery shelf. Need greens for eggs, soup, rice bowls, pasta, or a quick side dish? Take a few leaves and leave the plant in the ground. Bright stemmed varieties also make the garden look full and colorful without needing extra decoration. In containers, chard can look beautiful beside herbs, green onions, or compact peppers. The main care rule for Swiss chard in summer is moisture. Chard is tougher than many leafy greens, but it is still a leafy plant. If the soil dries out completely, the leaves can get tough and the plant slows down. A deep container, a raised bed with compost, and a layer of mulch make chard much easier. Harvest outer leaves before they get too huge. Smaller leaves are more tender, and regular picking tells the plant to keep growing. If a leaf gets damaged, sunburned, or ragged, remove it. The plant will look better, and you will avoid a messy patch that attracts problems. Chard is not zero maintenance, but for the amount of food it gives in a small space, it is one of the easiest summer greens to keep around. The third crop is cowpeas, also called southern peas in many gardens. Cowpeas are made for warm weather. They have a long history in southern gardens because they tolerate heat better than many common beans, and they can produce food in conditions where other crops slow down. For a busy gardener, cowpeas are useful because they do not ask for constant pampering. Once they are established, they can cover soil, handle summer sun, and give edible pods or peas depending on the variety. And when you harvest, there are different types of cowpeas. Some grow more bushy, some vine more. Some are grown for fresh snap pods when young, others are grown for the shelled peas inside. Choose the type that matches your space. If you have a small raised bed, look for a more compact variety. If you have a fence, trellis, cattle panel, or balcony railing, a vining type can climb and use vertical space. The important thing is to give them warmth and not overcomplicate the care. Cowpeas are especially helpful in the summer garden because they can cover bare soil. Bare soil gets hot, dries out, and invites weeds. A healthy cowpea planting shades the ground and turns an empty patch into food. Water them well when they are young so the roots can establish. After that, check moisture at the soil level instead of watering by habit. Too much rich nitrogen fertilizer can push leafy growth at the expense of pods, so keep feeding moderate. Harvest young pods, often if you want them tender. If you want dry peas, let pods mature on the plant, but do not let the planting become so overgrown that you stop noticing it. The best low-maintenance garden is not ignored. It is designed so the quick daily check is easy. The fourth crop is yardlong beans. If you want a summer vegetable that looks dramatic, grows fast in heat, and uses vertical space, yardlong beans are a strong choice. They are not the same as regular green beans. They love warmth, and in hot summer weather, they often keep producing when common beans become stressed. The vines climb, the leaves fill a trellis, and the long pods hang down where they are easy to see. For busy gardeners, yard-long beans work best when you give them a strong support from the beginning. Do not wait until the vines are tangled on the ground. Put up a trellis, strings, a fence panel, or a simple arch before or right after planting. Once the vines start climbing, your job becomes much easier. Instead of bending and searching through a messy patch, you can walk along the trellis and pick the long pods in a few minutes. The key is harvesting at the right stage. Yard-long beans are best when picked while still slender and tender. If you leave them too long, they can become less pleasant in texture. A quick morning harvest every day or two keeps the vines productive and keeps the pods at the right size. In containers, use a large pot or grow bag because the vines need root space and steady water. Mulch the top, water deeply, and place the container where it gets plenty of sun. Yard-long beans can turn a small vertical space into a lot of summer food, and that is exactly what busy gardeners need. More harvest from less ground. The fifth vegetable is bush beans. While yard-long beans climb, bush beans stay more compact, which makes them perfect for raised beds, containers, and small sunny patches. They are one of the easiest crops for beginners because they grow quickly, do not need a complicated trellis, and produce a satisfying harvest in a short time. If you plant the right amount, bush beans can give you fresh food without becoming a huge project. Bush beans are low maintenance because the plant shape is simple. They grow, flower, set pods, and then you pick. The main trick is to keep them harvested. If pods sit too long and mature on the plant, production can slow down. But if you pick regularly, the plants stay useful longer. For a busy household, a small patch of bush beans can be planted in waves. Instead of planting a huge row all at once, plant a short row or one container, then plant another small batch a couple of weeks later. That spreads the harvest and prevents the feeling of having too many beans one week and none the next. Beans do not like sitting in soggy soil, so drainage matters. They also do not need heavy feeding. Too much nitrogen can make the plants leafy instead of productive. Give them sun, moderate fertility, and consistent moisture when flowering and setting pods. In very hot weather, mulch helps keep the soil more even. When harvesting, use two hands or snips so you do not pull the whole plant up by mistake. Bush beans are not flashy, but they are dependable. For a practical summer garden, dependable is exactly what you want. The sixth vegetable is peppers. Peppers are a summer favorite because once they settle in, they can keep producing over a long season. Bell peppers, banana peppers, jalapenos, shishitos, poblanos, and many other types can fit into home gardens, and many varieties grow well in containers. For busy gardeners, peppers are helpful because they do not need to be harvested every single day at the exact perfect moment. You can pick many peppers green or let them color up if the plant is healthy and the season allows. Peppers like warm weather, but they do best when the plant is not constantly stressed. That means steady moisture, full sun with some common sense protection in extreme heat, and soil with enough nutrition to support flowering and fruiting. In containers, peppers are much easier if the pot is large enough. A tiny pot dries out too fast and turns a low-maintenance crop into a daily emergency. A deeper container, good potting mix, and mulch around the surface make the plant far more forgiving. One of the easiest ways to keep pepper plants productive is to avoid overfeeding with nitrogen. Too much nitrogen can create beautiful leaves but fewer peppers. Compost at planting, a balanced organic fertilizer if needed, and steady water are usually better than constantly pushing the plant. Support may also help, especially when the plant is loaded with fruit. A small stake or cage prevents branches from snapping. Harvest peppers cleanly with snips or a small knife. Pulling can break branches. When you choose compact, productive varieties, peppers become one of the best crops for a summer patio garden because they give color, flavor, and repeat harvests from the same plant. The seventh vegetable is eggplant. Eggplant is another warm season crop that can be surprisingly practical for busy gardeners, especially when you choose compact varieties. Many people imagine eggplant as difficult, but the right plant in the right spot can be quite straightforward. It likes warm soil, full sun, and consistent moisture. Once it begins producing, you can harvest fruits regularly and keep the plant going. For small spaces, look for patio, Asian, or compact eggplant varieties. Long, slender types often cook quickly and can be harvested at a smaller size. Compact plants work well in large containers, and they look attractive with purple flowers and glossy fruit. Eggplant does not need a huge bed if the root zone is healthy and the container does not dry out constantly. The low maintenance approach with eggplant is prevention. Start with healthy transplants. Do not crowd them. Give airspace. Mulch the soil. Check the undersides of leaves when you water because catching pests early is easier than fixing a big problem later. If flea beetles or other pests are common in your area, young plants may need protection early on. But once eggplant is established and growing strongly in summer warmth, it often becomes tougher. Harvest fruits while the skin is glossy and before the fruit becomes overmature. A clean harvest encourages the plant to keep producing. Eggplant is not the crop to plant and forget in a dry corner, but it is a good crop for busy gardeners who can give a quick, regular check and want a lot of food from a few plants. The eighth plant is basil. Basil is one of the easiest herbs to love in summer because it actually wants the warmth that makes many spring greens fade. A healthy basil plant can turn a small container into weeks of flavor. You can use it with tomatoes, eggs, pasta, grilled vegetables, sandwiches, sauces, and quick summer meals. For a busy gardener, basil is useful because a few plants can make even simple food taste fresh. The maintenance is simple but important. Keep pinching. If basil is allowed to flower too early, the plant changes its energy. The leaves can become smaller and the flavor can shift. But if you pinch the growing tips regularly, the plant branches and becomes fuller. You do not need a special harvest day. Every time you walk by, take the top few inches from a stem just above a pair of leaves. That one habit gives you a bushier plant and a steady harvest. Basil does well in containers, raised beds, or tucked near tomatoes and peppers where it gets sun. It likes moisture but does not want soggy roots. A pot with drainage, decent potting mix, and morning watering can keep it happy. In very hot, dry climates, a little afternoon relief can help prevent wilting. If you forget and the plant droops, water deeply and see if it recovers. Basil is forgiving when it has good roots. For busy gardeners, basil is a small space crop with a big payoff because it turns a tiny corner of the garden into something you use almost every day. The ninth plant is mint. Mint is almost too easy, and that is exactly why it belongs on this list with one very important rule. Grow it in a container. Mint spreads aggressively in the ground. If you plant it directly in a bed, it can run through the soil and become a problem. But in a pot, mint becomes one of the lowest maintenance edible plants you can grow. It is useful for tea, fruit, salads, sauces, cold drinks, and quick kitchen flavor. Mint tolerates partial sun better than many summer vegetables, so it can live near a patio, steps, or a bright edge where other crops may not thrive. It likes moisture, and because it grows fast, it can handle regular cutting. In fact, cutting mint keeps it fresh. If the stems get tall, woody, or tired, trim them back and let new growth come. A wide pot works well because mint spreads sideways. Keep the container where you can reach it, because the whole point of mint is easy use. For busy gardeners, mint is a reminder that low maintenance also means knowing the plant's personality. A plant that is easy in a pot can be annoying in the ground, so use the strength of mint without letting it take over. Give it its own container, water when the top of the mix begins to dry, and harvest often. If you only have a balcony or a tiny patio, mint can still give you a reliable, edible harvest all summer long. The 10th crop is green onions. Green onions are one of the most practical, low-maintenance crops for small spaces because they do not demand much room, and you can use them in so many meals. They fit along the edges of raised beds, in window boxes, in shallow containers, between slower-growing plants, or in a small corner near the kitchen door. When space is limited, crops that give a lot of flavor from a small footprint are extremely valuable. Green onions are low maintenance because they do not need constant pruning, staking, or complicated timing. You can harvest the green tops as needed or pull whole plants when they reach the size you want. Many gardeners also regrow store-bought scallion bottoms in water or soil, which can be a fun way to get extra greens. Although for a stronger garden crop, planting seed or sets in soil gives better long-term growth. The main thing green onions need is consistent moisture and weed control. Because they are narrow and upright, weeds can compete with them quickly if the bed is neglected. Mulch lightly around them or plant them in a clean container where weeds are not a big issue. In summer, they appreciate soil that does not bake hard. Harvest with scissors if you are cutting tops, and leave enough green growth for the plant to continue. Green onions may not fill a basket like cucumbers, but they make everyday cooking better. For busy gardeners, that matters. A garden is more useful when it gives you small harvests you actually use. The 11th crop is sweet potato leaves. Many gardeners think only of the roots when they hear sweet potatoes, but the leaves are edible too, and in warm summer weather, the vines can grow beautifully. For busy gardeners in warm regions, sweet potato vines can be a smart crop because they cover soil, tolerate heat, and provide tender greens from the growing tips while the plant continues to grow. Sweet potato leaves are especially useful when other greens are struggling. Instead of trying to force delicate spinach through hot weather, you can grow a plant that naturally likes warmth. Harvest the tender young leaves and vine tips, not old tough growth. Use them cooked like other greens, or in quick sautés, soups, or stir fries. Always make sure you are harvesting from edible sweet potato varieties that have not been sprayed with ornamental chemicals. Ornamental sweet potato vines sold for decoration are not the same as food garden plants. In a small garden, sweet potatoes can be grown in a large container, fabric grow bag, raised bed, or warm sunny patch. The vines spread, so give them room or guide them where you want them to go. If you are mainly growing leaves, you can harvest lightly and often. Do not strip the plant bare. Take a few tips from each vine and leave enough foliage to keep the plant strong. Water deeply during dry spells, especially in containers. Mulch helps keep roots cool and soil moisture steady. Sweet potato leaves are a great example of choosing crops that match summer instead of fighting it. The 12th crop is Malabar spinach. Despite the name, Malabar spinach is not true spinach, and that is part of the reason it is so valuable in summer. True spinach prefers cool weather and usually struggles when heat arrives. Malabar spinach, on the other hand, is a warm weather vine grown for edible leaves. It loves summer warmth, climbs beautifully, and can provide greens when many traditional salad crops have already quit. For busy gardeners, Malabar spinach works well because it grows vertically. Give it a trellis, fence, arch, or strings, and it will use the air instead of taking over the ground. The leaves are thick and glossy, and the plant can be very attractive in a small garden. It is especially useful in humid summer regions where other greens become difficult. Harvest the young leaves and tender tips. The texture is different from lettuce or spinach, so it is often best cooked, added to soups, or used in dishes where its slightly succulent quality is welcome. The low maintenance rule is simple: give support early. A vining plant without support becomes a tangle. A vining plant with support becomes a productive vertical wall. Planted in warm soil, provide steady moisture, and harvest regularly to keep the tips tender. In containers, choose a large enough pot and place the trellis securely so wind does not knock it over. Malabar spinach can make a small patio look lush while giving you a heat-loving green crop. For a summer garden built around low effort and repeat harvests, that is a big win. The 13th crop is kale. Kale is often thought of as a cool season crop, and in many areas it tastes best in cooler weather. But it can still earn a place in a summer low-maintenance garden if you treat it correctly and choose the right role for it. Instead of expecting perfect spring-style leaves in the hottest weeks, use kale as a sturdy cut-and-come-again green, especially in areas with milder summers or where it can get some afternoon shade. Kale is useful because one plant can produce many harvests. You take the lower outer leaves and leave the growing center. The plant keeps going. For busy gardeners, that is easier than replanting delicate greens over and over. Kale also works well in containers and raised beds, and it can bridge the garden from summer into fall. If you plant it in midsummer for a fall harvest, it may become even better as temperatures cool later. Summer kale needs moisture and pest awareness. Hot, dry stress can make leaves tough. Cabbage worms, aphids, or other pests may appear, so a quick leaf check matters. If pest pressure is heavy in your area, lightweight insect netting can save time because it prevents problems instead of forcing you to react later. Harvest leaves while they are still a manageable size. Older leaves can be cooked, but younger leaves are more tender. Kale is not always the easiest crop in extreme heat, but it is low maintenance in the sense that it is sturdy, productive, and forgiving when grown with mulch, steady water, and a little protection. The 14th crop is cherry tomatoes. A summer food garden almost does not feel complete without them. Cherry tomatoes are often easier than large slicing tomatoes because the fruits are smaller, they ripen faster, and many plants produce heavily over time. For busy gardeners, cherry tomatoes are valuable because you can harvest a handful at a time. You do not need to wait for a big tomato day. You just walk outside and pick what is ripe. The low-maintenance version of cherry tomatoes starts with variety, choice, and support. Choose compact, patio, dwarf, or disease-resistant varieties. If you are growing in containers or small spaces, put the cage, stake, or trellis in place early. Waiting until the plant is huge makes the job harder and can damage stems. Tomatoes are not truly no-work plants, but a supported cherry tomato in a large container can be much easier than a sprawling plant on the ground. Water consistency is the big issue. Containers dry out fast in summer, and uneven watering can stress tomato plants. Use a large pot, mulch the surface, and water deeply at the base. Avoid wetting the leaves late in the day if you can. Prune only what is necessary for airflow and access. Do not turn pruning into a complicated weekly project unless you enjoy it. Harvest ripe fruit often so the plant keeps moving. If you have only enough time for a short morning garden walk, cherry tomatoes make that walk feel rewarding. The 15th crop is cucumbers. Cucumbers can be incredibly productive in summer, especially when grown on a trellis and harvested regularly. They are fast, fresh, and perfect for the kind of garden where you want visible results. For busy gardeners, cucumbers are best when you choose compact, disease-resistant, or container-friendly varieties and give them support from the start. A cucumber plant on the ground can become a messy search mission. A cucumber plant on a trellis becomes much easier to manage. The fruits hang where you can see them. Air moves around the leaves. Harvesting is faster. In small gardens, vertical cucumbers save space and make the whole bed look cleaner. If you are growing in pots, choose a large container and do not let it dry out completely. Cucumbers need steady water because the fruits are mostly water, and drought stress can reduce quality. The maintenance habit is simple. Pick often. Cucumbers can grow quickly, and if you leave large, mature fruits on the vine, the plant may slow down. Check under leaves because cucumbers like to hide. Harvest when they are the size recommended for the variety. Use snips if the stem is tough. Mulch the soil, water at the base, and keep an eye out for leaf disease or pests. Cucumbers require more water than some crops on this list, but they earn their spot because they give so much food in a short time. With a trellis and a morning watering routine, they can fit beautifully into a busy summer garden. Now that we have walked through the 15 crops, the real power comes from how you combine them. A low-maintenance garden is not just a list of plants, it is a layout. Put tall crops like okra, trellised yardlong beans, Malabar spinach, and cucumbers where they will not shade everything else at the wrong time. Use the edges for green onions, basil, mint in its own pot, and compact chard. Place peppers and eggplant where you can reach them easily. Keep cherry tomatoes supported. Let cowpeas cover a warm patch or climb if the variety needs it. Use sweet potato vines where spreading growth is helpful, not where it will smother tiny seedlings. Think in layers. The back layer is vertical, trellises, stakes, cages, and upright plants. The middle layer is productive fruiting crops like peppers, eggplant, and tomatoes. The lower layer is herbs, green onions, chard, and mulch. This kind of layout means the garden does not demand constant correction. Plants have a place to grow. You can walk through quickly. You can see what is ready. You can water at the base without fighting a jungle. The second big principle is morning care. Busy gardeners often fail when garden care becomes scattered across the whole day. Instead, make the morning check simple. Water deeply where needed. Look for wilt, broken stems, pest clusters, or fruit that needs picking. Harvest what is ready. That might take 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of the garden. The point is not to do everything. The point is to catch small things before they become big things. The third principle is mulch. Mulch is one of the best low maintenance tools in a summer garden. It helps keep soil moisture more even, reduces splashing soil on leaves, and slows weeds. Use straw, shredded leaves, untreated grass clippings in thin layers, compost, or another garden-safe mulch available in your area. Keep mulch slightly away from the stems so you do not trap moisture against the plant. In containers, even a light mulch layer can make a difference during hot weeks. The fourth principle is choosing container size wisely. A small pot may look convenient, but in July heat, it can become high maintenance because it dries out too quickly. For peppers, eggplant, tomatoes, cucumbers, and larger herbs, bigger containers are usually easier. Fabric grow bags, half barrels, 5-gallon buckets with drainage, and deep planters can all work depending on the crop. The more root space and soil volume the plant has, the more forgiving it becomes. The fifth principle is to harvest before the plant gets tired. Many summer crops keep producing because you keep picking. Okra pods, beans, cucumbers, basil tips, chard leaves, kale leaves, mint stems, and cherry tomatoes all benefit from regular harvest. If you wait too long, pods become tough, cucumbers become oversized, basil flowers, and greens get old. A low-maintenance garden does not mean a garden you never touch. It means every touch has a purpose. The sixth principle is not to overplant. Busy gardeners often get excited and plant too much in a small space. At first, it looks full and beautiful. A few weeks later, it becomes crowded, hard to water, hard to harvest, and easy for pests and disease to hide. Give plants enough space to mature. One healthy cucumber on a trellis is better than 4 stressed cucumber plants tangled together. 3 strong pepper plants are better than 8 weak ones in undersized pots. Low maintenance starts with restraint. The seventh principle is to accept the season you are in. Summer is not the time to force every cool weather vegetable to behave. It is the time to grow crops that enjoy warmth and save the cool season crops for fall. That does not mean you cannot grow any greens. It means you choose greens like Swiss chard, sweet potato leaves, Malabar spinach, and carefully managed kale instead of expecting tender spring spinach to act the same in July heat. Here's a simple example of a low-maintenance summer setup. Put 1 cherry tomato in a large container with a cage. Put 2 peppers beside it in separate pots. Place basil near the tomato where you can pinch it often. Put mint in its own pot near the door. Use a trellis along the back for cucumbers or yard-long beans. Add a few green onions along the front of a raised bed. Plant Swiss chard in a spot with steady moisture. If you have more room, add okra at the sunny back corner, cowpeas in a warm patch, eggplant in a large pot, and Malabar spinach on a vertical support. Suddenly, a small area becomes a repeat harvest garden. For a busy week, your garden routine can be very simple. On Monday, water deeply and harvest anything obvious. On Tuesday, pinch basil and pick cucumbers. On Wednesday, check beans and okra. On Thursday, cut chard or kale leaves for dinner. On Friday, pick cherry tomatoes and peppers. On the weekend, add mulch where the soil is exposed, remove tired leaves, and tie up any stems that need support. None of these jobs has to take long. The garden becomes part of your rhythm, not another overwhelming task. If you are starting late in summer, focus on transplants and fast producers. Peppers, eggplant, cherry tomatoes, basil, chard, and kale may be easiest from healthy starter plants. Beans, cowpeas, yardlong beans, cucumbers, okra, and green onions can often be started from seed depending on your region and how much season you have left. In cooler northern areas, pay attention to your first expected frost date. In warmer southern areas, summer crops may have a much longer window, and some can carry on into fall. The United States has many growing climates, so use the list as a menu, not a rigid rule. The best low-maintenance vegetable is always the one that matches your climate, your space, and your real schedule. If you forget to water containers, choose fewer containers and make them larger. If you hate trellising, choose bush beans instead of too many climbing crops. If you love quick kitchen flavor, grow basil, mint, and green onions near the door. If you want baskets of produce, focus on cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, beans, okra, and peppers. If you want greens and heat, choose chard, sweet potato leaves, Malabar spinach, and kale with care. A summer garden for busy people should feel encouraging. You should be able to step outside before the day gets loud, water the roots, pick something fresh, and feel like the garden is giving back. It does not have to be perfect. A few yellow leaves are normal. A missed pod is normal. A cucumber hiding until it becomes too large is normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is steady food from plants that can handle real life. So if your schedule is full, do not give up on growing food. Start with a few dependable crops. Plant them in the right place. Mulch the soil. Water deeply. Harvest often. Keep the garden close enough that you actually visit it. A small patio, a few pots, or one raised bed can still produce a surprising amount when the crop choices are right. This summer, try okra for heat, Swiss chard for steady greens, cowpeas for warm weather resilience, yardlong beans for vertical harvests, bush beans for simple production, peppers for long season flavor, eggplant for compact abundance, basil for daily freshness, mint for easy herbs, green onions for small space usefulness, sweet potato leaves for heat-loving greens, Malabar spinach for a climbing summer green, kale for sturdy cut-and-come-again harvests, cherry tomatoes for snackable fruit, and cucumbers for fast, refreshing abundance. You do not need to grow all 15 at once. Choose the 5 or 6 that fit your life best. A busy gardener does not need the biggest garden. A busy gardener needs the smartest garden. And when you choose crops that love summer, forgive imperfect care and keep giving after each harvest. Even a few minutes in the morning can turn into a basket of food by the end of the week.